again, my beautiful people. I hope that you are stepping into this space today with great inner peace and tranquility, because I have a feeling that we're gonna fly a little bit today. I'm so happy to welcome to this space Kristen Stuart, which is a dear colleague, a dear friend. We got to know each other through the ether and the etheric and the online realm. Still haven't met in person. However, it feels like we've met years and past life before. So Kristen is a modern priestess, I would say, a beautiful light goddess that is super attuned, connected, walking the ladies in her realms to a deeper connection with their divine feminine and beyond any duality. Kristen, welcome to this space.
Thank you so much for this invitation. I feel like it's a divine reunion from many timelines is truly how it feels. And just the frequency here with you is such an exquisite dance. And thank you for this introduction. It's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to be on this path at this pivotal time in humanity's evolution and shift in consciousness.
Yeah, it is. And we started already our internal conversation before it all started to become aware of this specific time. Even we had to the extent of today and tomorrow, we had a conversation about this moment in time and how the eternal now is still navigating in a linear time.
Yes.
And we can live, and we are living in both timelines, vertical and horizontal. And then in the horizontal timeline, we still have layers and layers. And this is part of the things that I felt that I would really love to have a conversation with you. Because from what I feel and know and connect to your presence and to your energy, it's not for nothing, for example, that not the first time that we communicate, the presence of our past lives.
Yes.
And few of them is very present. So it's, of course, the two of us, who we are now, are conversing, but who we were together in Egypt, and who we were together in the Navajo, and who we were together in Greece. Those presents are very active. When I communicate with you, those aspects are super active. I'm also very much aware that part of your magic and of your services is going through the Akashic. So this is another dimension of how the play of time is so strong with you and in your presence. But it also have been to the human you.
The human journey.
Yeah, and in the human journey, you went from one phase to another phase.
Yes.
So would you like to share that with those who listen? And maybe we can also dive after that a little bit to the Akashic aspect of it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes. One of the questions I'm often asked is, how did you get to where you are now in the work that you do, for example, in the Akashic Records and working with higher dimensional wisdom? And I think back to the moment I stepped on a yoga mat in 2002 and I connected with something that was different, that felt different. And I knew there was something here for me. And so I, dropped into this path of the yogini, and diving into the wisdom teachings is what really stood out to me. And I knew immediately I wanted to share the path of yoga with others. And it was always less about the physical postures for me. And it was more about what I felt like we were doing was, one, communicating light through our body and understanding the path of returning to oneness, the path of coming home to oneness.
Using the
Yeah,
body as the bridge to the oneness consciousness.
absolutely. And so it began there, and that it was beautiful. I was also a personal trainer at the time. So physical was always something I very much connected to. We've got the tangible, the physical body is a beautiful portal and gateway. It's also our temple of all of our light. And so this path of being a yoga teacher, meditation teacher's teacher, this was something I followed for quite some time, as well as taking people into the mountains. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but I worked as an international hiking guide. And I would take people to sacred sites and vortices, and we would do meditations and really work intimately with the earth, which I've always been very connected to, as I'm based here in the Canadian Rocky Mountains. And this was a beautiful dance that I was in what I shared, and the way I chose to share it at this time through my work. And then the big dream that came to me was to open a yoga studio called Sacred Roots.
And how
And
deep you
so,
were on the spiritual path already at that time?
so already I would say over 10 years, because even in university, prior to moving to the Canadian Rockies, I studied Eastern religions. I was studying Hinduism and Buddhism and Shintoism when I was 19 years old, and always felt called to spirit in various and very curious, spiritually curious. And so
But
following these prompts.
you were already, we can say, established, like you had a
Yes.
spiritual ground.
Yes. Already. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And prior to stepping on a yoga mat, had already started traveling to different sacred sites around the world and feeling called to Central America. And it just expanded from there. The path began, and it was opening the yoga studio where things really went to their next levels, and my next level of awakening began. And so I had recently returned from the Sacred Valley of Peru, and I was there specifically for the 11-11-11 portal with my mentor at the time, a yoga teacher, deeply beautiful woman, Ali Bogard. And I had a very profound awakening experience in Peru, in the Sacred Valley, physically, everything. And some would liken it to call it a Kundalini awakening, to use that
In
language.
Cusco, when you say Sacred
In
Valley?
Urubamba. So,
Okay.
yeah, down in Urubamba. And I was coming back to Canada to go full on into launching and opening Sacred Roots, January of 2012. And I came back, and I remember flying into Calgary International Airport and literally feeling the frequency, such a massive frequency shift, and the density. It was like the plane landed and I landed and felt this sense of, wow, we've got big work to do here. And my human is opening a yoga studio. My spirit and multidimensional self is coming online like never before in a very accelerated rate that was faster than my human could catch up to. Yet I was coming in with a strong spiritual foundation, yet also a strong foundation with an addiction to adrenaline. I was an ice climber, an alpinist, a rock climber.
Oh my God. So you were like squeezing the adrenaline out of the spiritual world, try to glue two frequencies together by the power of intention. That can be done.
So, very used to operating at a high level of adrenaline because that was my lifestyle. My husband's an international mountain guide, and this is what we would do together. But what I had done was created a perfect cocktail for the perfect storm, because everything was becoming amplified. And I also feel 2012, I often look at it and see it as the second massive wave of awakening. We are in the third wave, is how I interpret it now. And so I was opening a yoga studio putting myself out there with this great dream without a strong business foundation or even a plan. It was a lot of passion, a lot of vision, and I was flying on the energy. And ultimately, I was moving into extreme anxiety. I was navigating, starting to not sleep. I stopped sleeping for a couple of months. Yet all along, I still was ignoring the signs, the messages of what was coming.
What do you
Which,
feel
of course,
energetically happened at that time for you, like in your energetic structure, in your own aura?
I feel that I was feeling this high that was beyond. I felt superhuman. I literally used those words at the time. And I was ignoring the fact that what I was feeling was actually anxiety, and it felt like excitement to me.
Mm.
And energetically, everything just felt so big and light.
May I ask another question around it?
Of
How
course.
was your heart at that period of this?
It was not content. It was not content. And what was also lying underneath all of this is a trauma story that had not been healed.
But
And
was
it was a story
acknowledged.
of, it was acknowledged, but it was not healed because it
A
was
trauma?
more, yes, yeah,
Would you?
sexual trauma. Yeah. So prior to meeting my husband, I had been sexually assaulted by my employer and felt somehow that I had brought that on. Lost my voice. I couldn't yell out for help. He had broken into my room, and I just went in. I disappeared. I disassociated, is what I did, and disappeared. So, this is also what was underneath. And so, part of I call it this thrust into the mountains, was to get strong physically, to feel like I could get strong and I could push through fear, as though I wasn't allowed to feel fear or feel what I felt. And so I created incredible layers of complexity, and I was stacking things on top of it.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that,
Yes.
and also for leading with that. I want to relate to it because I feel it is so important for the people who are listening and feeling you and sensing you and will know more about you as we advance in this conversation, is also to take into consideration. I feel that this part about the heart is so important, because if trying to get almighty and bypassing the heart this is anxiety. This is the
Yes.
heart screaming to be known, to be seen, to be tended, to be healed. So many people are concerned about spiritual people, about the spiritual path, that it is bypassing the mind. While I feel that the entire world is dealing with large quantities of bypassing the heart.
I
And
absolutely
bypassing the
agree.
heart creates this breakdown and create this
Yes.
level of disconnection, that on one hand you were so empowered by spirit, like I can feel you, like I just can, I am with you in your roots. What was the name of it?
Sacred roots.
Sacred roots. I'm there, I can feel you, I can smell, I can see the space. And I can feel the empowerment that you had received from this awakening and reconnection, again, through the Akashic, to who you were and what you were, and the communion that you had in your past life and your presence in your past life. It's like you activated a whole, like, bookshelves from your Akashic records. You got this massive activation inside of you, and it was for your heart.
Yes. Absolutely.
It needed to go from the first chakra through the heart to the crown, and it's so important. It's so important that we acknowledge that bypassing the heart is way more something that we should look at than bypassing the mind. We're supposed to bypass the mind in some way. It's not a secretary. It's not a, I don't know, like a policeman that we should show our reports of what we have done today. We're supposed to bypass the mind. We're not in the same frequency of thoughts.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, the heart is the portal. The heart is the portal to the infinite, the eternal love that we're here to be, we're here to remember.
So then I'm assuming that your life took you into, okay, let's balance that, and we're going to give full attention to the heart now. Okay, I appreciate crown, I appreciate first chakra. Let's put attention.
Yes, and so the what happened within 7 months of opening the studio, I was on the floor. I was in full burnout, very much out of alignment, physically pushing, and still the conversation in my head was saying, "What is wrong with you? You are stronger than this. Literally get up off the floor. You have climbed mountains for 18 hours before. You can do this." And there was that very critical voice, you get stronger, get harder. And ultimately where I wound up was in the hospital on suicide watch. And I was moving in and out of states of suicidal psychosis.
And the presence of this abuse was there. It already came to the surface. There was also a moment where I said to myself, I felt within me that this abuse was for your employer. And part of the semi-correction that you wanted to organize for yourself is that I'm going to be an employer and I'm going to fix it like that. I'm going to be better, stronger, clearer, aligned, spiritual. I'm going to fix it like that. It's going to be my silent revenge, we can even say energetically.
Yeah, powerful. Powerful. Yes. And it was this, there was this feeling of this is my calling. I've got to do this and I'll do it no matter what, whatever it takes, that feeling. And so there was definitely these aspects when we could reference the ego, for example, of I'll show them, I'll show him, I'll overcome what has happened. And the truth was I had suppressed it so deeply, I had forgotten about it.
Oh my God. So how did it came to the surface?
I really feel as consciousness really started to shift more rapidly, that it was just a quickening of the journey, right? Mm-hmm. Acceleration. Yeah. And so the layers started to come up. But even I married my husband in 2004. We had met in 2002. This traumatic experience had happened the year prior, 2001. And it wasn't until 3 or 4 years into our marriage where I remembered, communicated about it. But it was also something that I didn't want to pull it forth fully. This is still in the field with me. And the journey through the other side of the breakdown, which is the breakdown to break through, it had to be so big that I couldn't move, because I was very good at physically moving. Wow. And so I had no energy. I couldn't move. The Chinese medicine practitioner that I was seeing, she said, your organs are functioning, but that's it. And I literally couldn't get off the couch, which was an interesting journey to navigate for myself. And having these visions, like going in and out of these visions. And this is streaming. Yeah, so this is streaming right now. So I feel it wants to drop in. I remember it was actually summer solstice. And so just to give a bit of a timeline, studio opened January 2012, closed on my 37th birthday, July 31st, 2012. It was summer solstice where I was still pushing through, and I was laying on the couch, and I'd been invited out to lead a solstice hike up to a top of a mountain with a group of women. And
in addition,
every part of yes, and every part of me wanted to go. My body said no. as I literally was like, couldn't get off the couch. And I remember getting off the phone feeling bad that I couldn't lead this, but then dropping into this vision. And what I saw, it was like I was climbing this metal ladder, a metal rung ladder out of a bottomless abyss.
Wow.
And I was swinging ice axes that you would use for ice climbing, mountaineering. And I was swinging the ice axe to hook the next rung to climb up. Because ice climbing, you pull up on the axe when you're vertically climbing a frozen waterfall. And I would swing the axe and I would catch the next rung. And I started to feel like I couldn't swing the next axe to keep climbing. And I was like 2 rungs from the top, which I saw the sky. And there was this voice saying, let go. And there was my human going, no. And I heard, let her receive you.
Wow.
And it was like I went, fine. I might have used a different word. And I felt like I was free falling through space. And it felt never ending. And I started to go, what have I just done? It was like this ultimate act of surrender. And then eventually landing. And it felt like I thudded onto the earth, looked back up, and my immediate feeling inside of me was, wow, I am at the base of the Grand Canyon, the bottom of the Grand Canyon, at the base of Mount Everest. And I've got to get from here to the base of Everest and to the top of Everest. I've got the climb of my life ahead of me. And that's truly what was about to come.
When you started sharing this incredible inner dialogue between you and the goddess that you are, and although you said there was no end, right? When you said that you were climbing, but there was no bottom to that. The seeing that I had within me is that was a luminous space. I see light coming out. So then when you were saying, okay, drop, it was really drop into, there's no dimension, no time, no up, no down, no inside, no outside. It's like drop into your next level. You might feel that you're dropping into down, but you're dropping into the next level.
Yes.
I want to open a little bit this energy of breakdown that is being experienced by many on the spiritual path, a breakdown that leads to a breakthrough. And I know that there's many people that are afraid of this breakdown. And I'm sure that at the time that you were by force interiorized,
yes,
lead yourself to interiorization by force, brute force, yes. Not bright and brute force.
That's how I used to request, yes.
Because I feel that in this moment, it might be probably that there's needs for the human to feel the disappointment, right? Maybe frustration. I don't know what were the negative feelings with it.
Yeah, and for me, my greatest fear when I think back, my fear was failure. My fear was, I can't fail. And so I'm going to go for this big dream. I can't fail. And so the universe needed, God, Spirit, needed to show me this is simply a stepping stone. This is actually, horizon. Yeah, let's just get this out of the way right now because you have a far greater calling. And so this was the piece I needed to meet myself at the depths of myself. I had to enter the liminal space, I had to come home to shunya is a term that I use, that merging point beyond all time space.
Yeah. So at the other side of the breakdown, there's a greater you.
Yes. With a fuller heart, as my heart got to, became the focus. The focus was healing, for sure, and healing the fractures that were in my heart that I was carrying, that were preventing the wholeness and the unconditional love, which the next step was I needed to come home to that within. And I see this as the first stage of awakening, is awakening to self-love as where we see we are the divine in human form. And I used this reference recently, which is a play on one of our shared mentors' words, but I shared with someone that she was divinity on legs. And when we look in the mirror and we see the divine reflected back, and to fall in love with self. And this is what was the next step for me, in recognition that I had never truly done that. Everything up to that point in my life had been based on doing, and a very masculine way of operating, very programmed and outside validation.
Yeah. I feel, to share my sensation, that there's no other love than unconditional love, and there is no other love than self-love.
Yes. And it's so expansive, feeling this just emanate through the field. Yeah. This is it. This is it. And I remember thinking, this is our journey here. Is to come home to this, so that we are the vibration of this.
Yeah.
It is here. And it was a journey to come to that, because I had to walk through a lot of the navigation of deep feelings of shame, of failing, of grieving, of I'd made mistakes. I wasn't able to run a business. There were so many things, the impact on my family, the impact on my partner during that time, because I did try to take my life and my mother walked in. And it was also, that was the next level of understanding the true power of love, was
with her presence.
Feeling, yes, her. And I feel the emotion as we're speaking to this. I'll never forget the moment where she walked in and she saw me.
She just needed to come in time.
And she looked at me and I said, don't take me to the hospital. I said, trust me, I haven't taken enough pills, basically. And she held me in her arms and she just loved me without judgment, without fear. I did not feel the fear in her field, and that was so pivotal and important for me.
It feels like an initiation.
Yeah.
Like an initiation moment.
And it was also an initiation for her, because I felt a power in her that I had never felt before. It was like she stepped into this trust and this level of the power of her love, and knowing and trusting that her love, and we've talked about it since, that her love could be enough to help me move through this. It was, of course, it's all my choices and the path, yet understanding the true power of love, of unconditional love, of the fierce love of a mother, witnessing this and feeling this, it was profound for me. And I knew that I was about to step into the next level of my work, and even a next level in our relationship too.
Yeah. It feels like a ripple effect of you answering your calling and willing to go deeper into your heart. Had a ripple effect of it, and the healing that you took yourself through the breakdown, again, I feel the call to give this reflection, that maybe it will touch you, maybe it will touch the people who are listening, that what we name as like a mental distortion sometimes is cutting the cords. This is actually the process of cutting the cords that are mental cords to strong paradigms that we are anchored in. And this distortion, as you're shifting biologically, emotionally, spiritually, might feel like there is no clear perception of reality and of self. And I feel that the sad thing is that we're not living in a society that acknowledge that. We're not living in a society that acknowledge that there are moments that the mind he operates is something that can be shifted in instant, but it had the healing, like it needs a healing impel. And we're not living in a society that is seeing someone opening spiritually and knowing that this is the most sacred thing that can happen to a person, and just he needs to be taken care of, like a woman giving birth.
Yes. And I love this conversation and I love this piece, because in the shamanic traditions, it is this point, the initiation, the psychosis is referred to as the initiation into the next level of
you lose
the
yourself
medicine.
for a moment. You just lose yourself. You're disconnected from yourself, and it would look inside and outside distorted.
Yes.
While that spirit who took you to Peru and brought you back and made this opening of this studio and all of this process and called your mother to be there with you.
It's divine. It was a divine intervention, divine orchestration.
Yeah.
And there's so much, of course, looking at just how profound and perfect it all was ultimately. And then the knowing that, I would bring myself back. And it was interesting because I was blessed to work with someone who spoke the language of energy at the time. And so that was his lens as a psychologist. He knew the language where we could speak in resonance, whereas the psychiatrist was just looking at a clipboard with the stats, right? And eventually I remember going in for a check-in because I needed to have a check-in with her after some time. And she looked at me and she said, "Tell me everything you did, because most people don't make it back from where you were." And literally I started meditating daily, because prior to that, I was less about the meditation seat and I was more about the physical movement. And this was when, okay, you're going to sit. And this began what has been for 12 years now, the daily practice for me. And it was also the understanding of life force and bringing in as much high frequency and high vibrational physical supports as I could, from the live spring water I was choosing to drink to various practices to support my nervous system, of course, my endocrine system, and bringing everything back into a harmony, a harmonic state. And I laugh when I think of that moment. She's looking at the clipboard again.
And she said,
looking at me.
Yeah, give me the recipe.
Give me the recipe, because I want to write this down. And of course, moving through the layers on the other side. And it was about a year before I felt full life force back to work and to start to re-engage. And I initially didn't want to have anything to do with spirituality, wellness, yoga.
But you did.
I did.
So just not publicly spiritually.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I would lay on the mat and initially listen to recorded meditations until I anchored into my own practice, and then continued to grow and expand my communication with spirit from there.
When the Akashic Records opened up for you, it was always opened up. If not, you wouldn't download these 3,000 books that you downloaded in a very short period of time. But when was that becoming like a concrete connection? You started navigating the corridors and knowing where to go, what to take the book from.
It started in Peru. So it started in 2011 when I was literally hiking up to the Sun Gate at Machu Picchu. And all of a sudden I had a flash of being a little girl in another timeline lifetime, skipping up to the sun gate to greet my Incan father returning, because the warriors would come back. And then that immediately flashed to my husband as an Incan warrior. And I was like, whoa, where is all of this information? What is happening right now? Because it was just this feeling of being home and the soul remembrance. And so I started to work with a mentor in the Akasha in 2013 with no intention to ever do anything with it other than understand why I was having these remembrances of different experiences and information pouring forth through all the halls and the libraries. And I was like, and I felt like this female Indiana Jones exploring, like, wow, into the mystery, let's go to understand it and link it up. And then I actually started to bring it forth publicly. It wasn't until 2020 when
long integration period.
There was a long integration period. And during that time, just diving into divine feminine teachings and studies of the goddess and bringing this through in ways that essentially I was offering, I could call it was a coaching program through the yogini path. And that's literally what it was called. Yet I was starting to share the wisdom teachings and some of the mystery teachings. And
What made you come back to publicly being spiritual? Going out, in your case, it's not of the closet, but it's out of the house.
Out of the house again. A big part of it was getting my confidence back to actually teach and to share, because I felt initially like a fraud.
Because of the so-called failure. Because giving yourself to spirit in a different, but for the human at that moment.
It was because I remember this was coming through. I was in the hospital, in the mental health ward, and I live in a small community. And a lot of my yoga students are nurses. And so outside, I could literally hear my students and their voices. And of course, the hospital wouldn't let people that necessarily a nurse that intimately knew me serve me. It was someone else that would come in to bring the medication and do all the things for me. I wound up in the hospital for 5 days at that point. But I remember lying in that bed going, oh my gosh, here I am, here to teaching about love and light, and I'm in here because I've been trying to exit. I felt around that. And that took me a while to move through.
Yeah, I can completely understand. And I'm sure that everyone who listen, we all have this period of our life where the shame is so strong. But then I look at you and I listen to you and I can understand what you're experiencing about this shame. And what I hear is what a hero to orchestrate that for yourself, to be in a place where it's like this shame feels like an ego death.
Absolutely.
And you need to be a hero to say, can you sign me up for maybe 2 ego deaths in between 2012 to can we do 2? This ambitious girl?
Bring it on, more please.
Yeah. So I know that for the human, this shame is, how can I?
Yes.
And like a cocktail, as you also use this word, like of shame and failure and all of that. And at the same time, so much power. You knew how powerful you are when you said to your mom, it's okay. Almost you told her, thank you, Mom, for showing up as we agreed upon. I'm also doing my part. You're doing your part. We're holding hands together. Next level is coming. There's always an awakened spirit inside of us.
Yes. And then it was a pretty rapid, in a way, it felt quite rapid how quickly I came back once I decided, okay, I'm teaching again and starting to share. And then literally women started to come to me and ask me if I would coach them. And that's how my coaching practice began in 2013.
And this is full embodiment. This is coaching from embodiment. So this shame that in a certain level of consciousness we might feel that this is not okay, that we are not okay. But then this shame is fundamental for you to be able to understand so profoundly and deeply without words and behind words and above words, whomever is coming to your support. Because like the gates are open.
Yeah. And the vibration is there, the resonance is there. And I knew I could meet anyone where they were at and take them where their soul wants to go.
Yeah.
Whether they want to or not. I like to say, right? And that was it. I've walked to the edge. I've come back. I looked over the edge. It is so fascinating to reflect on what was going on inside of my mind and my brain, and outwardly what was complete distortion and obviously very fear triggering for those witnessing me. But it was so fascinating to feel this such chaos and such darkness, and like be sacred witness to my own journey back from there.
Yeah. Kristen, you mentioned before the first awakening, the second awakening, and the third awakening, and you've mentioned that for yourself, and you also mentioned that globally. So as we're coming to completion of this conversation, do you feel comfortable to share your vision about this third awakening, both for yourself and for the collective, for those who are listening?
Yes. I feel where we are right now it's like completely setting a new paradigm, a new earth forth. We carry the codes. We carry the codes of light. We carry these ascension and awakening codes. And we're turning them on. We're remembering them as we're literally clearing. We're in this becoming and unbecoming at the same time. And what I see is we are in this next level of evolution in humanity and towards the next state of evolution of a human, from Homo sapien to Homo luminous, a being of light, of pure light, operating in higher dimensional consciousness. It's like clearing the distortion of all that has been the past, a dense past. So whether we give it a 13,000 years, 26,000 years, really, it doesn't matter. But it is a history that anchored in the descent in consciousness from a time of a golden age into the silver, a bronze, the iron, and we're exiting from this now. Exiting in the yogic tradition from the Kali Yuga, goddess Kali, the ultimate mother, right? The destroyer for the rebirth. And so we're awakening to our light, and it's like thousands upon thousands of codes are turning on as we remember our original essence, our true nature as light. And so it's like the creation codes are what are now streaming through. It's like going back to the beginning to bring the beginning when we came in as light, as pure consciousness, pure divinity, as one. And we're remembering this. And it's almost like taking the remembrance of the beginning before the descent began, bringing it through to the now, pulling it literally through the field to the now, to feel this. It's like this ignition and this light turning on and turning up, and the higher frequencies that we're learning how to integrate and embody in our human, because our human physical body has never known this amount of light, this high frequency, without the body we have, but with the body.
Yeah, exactly. The body is
right?
completely in such a huge readjustment to be able to shift this into a luminous DNA, into a light DNA, to activate the light DNA. It's like massive. And we were like saying, we're going to hold the first chakra, that the frequency can hold our conversation. We were still in the human dimension. And now as we were speaking, and I do believe that the people who are listening are really prone, we can say, to integrate and to drink those codes that are being shared here. And there's something super interesting when I'm listening to you sharing your vision, your prophecy, your vision of the prophecy, your piece in the prophecy. And you were sharing before about this dream, climbing, and then surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see the similarity between those two. I can see, and it's so important, like this is a blessing for so many of the listeners to understand that the codes that we carry gonna show up in our life in different patterns, different colors, different ways, different stories, internal, external, and so on. And it is still, this is the code that you're carrying. This is who you are. This is what you're holding that. This is the game. And this is what you're doing. It is so beautiful to see it.
Yes. Yeah. And and as we're in this right now, is feeling the light flooding the space.
Yeah.
As we're now speaking into these higher frequencies of the coding that is streaming through the field.
Yeah.
As this is where we're going, and what an honor it is, how incredibly exciting it is that I'm so grateful I said yes to this mission.
Yeah.
And kept going, obviously, and moving through, and just feeling on the deepest level continual calling forward, and building, picking up the tools, and building the capacity and the resiliency, and bringing through the resiliency from the lineage, my ancestral line, and then cutting what is no longer serving through into the future, what is coming.
Yeah. So
And
powerful,
it feels so
beautiful.
rich.
It is rich. It's like luxurious.
It's so luxurious. That's the word. I was about to say, it's so sacredly luxurious.
Yeah. And it is for the courageous hearts.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's such an honor. I know we could talk for endlessly into the infinite and beyond forever. And this has been so beautiful and powerful. And I know that it's just opening. The field is spiraling open even more. And there's the part of me that's, let's go to the next level. Let's go into this next level of the codes now, where as we've primed the space.
Every conversation like that.
Yes.
Every conversation like that is another step. It's another step. And it doesn't matter if those are me and you who are conversing, or if someone is witnessing the conversation. I feel that energetically we've built a temple in this conversation.
Yes. Right back to our temple times, Homaya. Egypt, Greece, all over. And it is. And that's it. It's a temple of light.
Yeah. Thank you so much for... Tell me.
Yeah. I just had this vision. It was like this temple of light, and it was like the beating heart in the center, just pulsing it.
Mm-hmm.
So just had this feeling come through me in that moment, and it was so exquisite, and it is an honor. So thank you. Thank you for this invitation to share in the space with you, and with your community, and to everyone listening, celebrating what you have opened here to the field for everyone.
Thank you.
What an incredible gift it is, and of course you are, and the courage and the commitment to open this space and this platform.
Thank you.
It's huge.
Thank you so much. I feel also that the podcast itself is a temple.
Yes.
Thank you, love.
Absolutely.